So now in Qwik we have a concept like group layout. Okay, so there are the concept of layout, then the nested layout, and there is a group layout. So what exactly this group layout is, right? So let's see. Like the common purpose of routes are often placed into the directory so that they can share layout, right? So the common what exactly layouts is used. So layout is used just to make sure that each and every component, each and every nested component will have a specific set of layouts, right? Which should be followed by everyone, right? So but what is that common purpose of these nested layouts? So this is the common purpose of layout, right? And so the related sources files are logically grouped into the next to the each element, right? And however it may be described that the directory. So however it may be desirable that the directory which was used to group the similar files and share the layout is executed from the public face URL, and there is where the group layout comes in and also renders to the parent pathless layout routes. So whatever they had said, I don't understand anything. So for understanding this concept, I just have to read this once again. Okay, so I don't think you have any issue with that. Let's understand this in a much better way. However, it may be described desirable that the directory which was used to group similar file and share the layout is executed from the public face URL, right? So in simple words, they just want to say maybe at some point of time you want, like if there is a folder which group all the other files, okay, would share a common layout, okay, which is sharing a common layout is executed from the public face URL. So that should be executed from the public facing URL, and this is where the group layout will works. So this is where the group layout works. Okay, so don't worry, we will understand this what exactly they want to tell you. So by surrounding any directory name with a parenthesis, so whenever you use this parenthesis, right, such as this name, then the directory name itself will not be included in the URL path. Great. So this concept is basically coming from the routing section. Okay, so in routing section, as you can see that, so if I just want to make a number of something, a number of routes in the same directory, so I can use that parenthesis. Okay, so in the same way, they using this to create the group layout. They are using the same. If you are indicating a folder name with this parenthesis, like I want to create an account folder, but in account folder I want to create a nested number of elements at the same level. Okay, so for doing this I can use this parenthesis. Okay, and by specifying this I can now create a multiple routes at the same level. For example, if I create this profile, and within this profile if I create this index.tsx, then it will renders a path like example.coms.slash.profile. So one thing which should be noticeable here is this: I just don't want to render this account section. Okay, so I don't want to be that, okay, this account section should comes in this path URL. Like, so if I don't want to specify a URL in my path, so I just use that parenthesis. Okay, so by using this parenthesis, I just inform my Qwik application, okay, brother, please don't use this account word. I just want this account. I just created this account because I need that folder structure, right? So but there is no need to mention this account in your URL path, right? So in this way we just had created a layout right there. Okay, and by specifying this layout we just grouped all of these things, all the nested elements at the same level. Okay, and at the same time they all are using this layout also. Okay, so in this way, what exactly I think now you have an understanding of why do we call this a group layout. So the meaning of group layout is quite simple. We want this URL, this layout.tsx layout, to be used in all of the elements in the same level. Okay, all of the elements in the same level and the nested elements, right? So to make this purpose fulfill, we just created the layout in our section, in our grouped nested API, okay, or grouped routing section. Okay, in grouped routing section you will create the layout, and this layout will be utilized by each and every component which is grouped by this account section. Okay, so that's quite simple, man. I was thinking, okay, I think groups layout something different, but it's just nothing. It's just nothing. So let's move to the next one. So what is this named layout? Let's see what this named layout is. So at time, related layouts needed to have drastically different layouts from their siblings, and it is possible to define the multiple layouts at different siblings routes, a single default layout, and any number of named layout, and the child route can then request a specific named layout. Okay, and we had just say layouts a number of times, so I don't want to say this anymore, right? So what basically it means that, okay, for example, I just want a different number of layout. Okay, I just want a different layout for my different component, and different layout for different, and different layout for different, right? So I just not wants to depend upon a single route. Okay, instead of, I just want to use a multiple layouts. Okay, and I'm thinking of, okay, I should have that power, right? So to choose which layout I should works in my design, right? So there is the name layout comes in picture. Okay, so let's see how it works. So in Qwik City define the convention that layouts are resources / routes, and the file name starts with layout. Okay, so in Qwik City, as you had seen that whatever the routes we had defined, whenever we wants to define the layout, we just follow this structure. Okay, and we define our layouts in source / route section. Okay, and if it is a layout, we start that with layout name, right? We start that file name with this layout word. Okay, so that is why the default layout name is so the default layout, which is quite default for each and every nested elements, would be layout.tsx. Okay, so name layout also start from layout. When you create a named layout, it's also sorry. Okay, so when we create a named layout, it also starts from layout, but it's followed by a dash sign and a unique name, whatever we want, right? So for example, we had created a layout which with the name of layout-narrow.tsx. Okay, so in that tsx we had created a design. Okay, and that design will be used by this example.com/contact, right? Great. And at the next time, I just created another layout, which is our parent layout, right? And this is our default layout, right? And then I created a new layout, which is layout-narrow-.tsx, right? Okay, so in this way, here you can see that I just created two layouts, right? One is the parent layout, and one is what we call that name layout, right? So how we can use this? So for example, here we have this route. Okay, this if we just go to our home directory, there it will render this layout, there it will simply render this parent layout. Great. And if we go into this section, that source/routes/index.tsx, okay, so first this layout will come, and then all of the content whatever being I had created here will go into this section, right? But when I go into this contact section, when I will go this into source means this my parent, okay, sorry, routes means this parents, and parent/contact. So when I goes into this, what will happen? It will firstly render the source/route/layout.narrow.tsx, okay, and then it will render my source/route/contact/index@narrow.tsx. Where it is that @ coming from? This @.tsx, okay. And what is this means? So this @narrow.tsx will render this this layout-narrow.tsx file, okay. And this whatever being there in this section will render this layout. So to specify that, okay, I want to use this narrow layout, I have to mention with this @narrow. Great. So it's a simple index file, but I just want to say my system, okay, instead of this parent layout, I want this layout.narrow.tsx. Right? As you can see, it's not a parent layout, it's our layout-narrow.tsx, okay. And in this layout we will have our component, this component, right? In this we have our this component. So this is the named layout. So name layout, what is the purpose of the name layout? For example, for a different page, for example, I don't want a menu icon and a footer in my about section, okay, or in my FAQ section, or in my some personal kind of section, okay, where I don't need any header or a footer or a sidebar, right? So for that pages, I don't want to use this parent layout, right, which is being used on each and every page. I just want a different kind of layout, right? So for that purpose we use name layout, okay. And remember, to use that name layout you have to mention the name, the second part, with an @ okay. So by using, if you want some specific layout, you just have to name this like this. You will define each and everything in it, whatever being the layout, and to use this you have to just mention @ the name of the layout.tsx. That is it. Great. Okay, great. So we had learned about that name layout, right? So next, move to this top. Okay, man, please go to the top section. So here we have our top layout. So what exactly this is? Great. We are going to learn about this top layout in Qwik.js. Great. So the default is that a page will create its layout stack by climbing up each directory until it get to source routes directory. And if at any point it should not continue to climbing up the directory, you can use the top layout feature. And the top layout means that the layout is always at the very top of the nested layout stack and does not keep collecting parents layout. A top layout means the layout is always at the very top of the nested layout or the nested stack, and does not keep collecting parent layout even there are parent directory layouts. Are you getting this? It's a quite powerful thing. Okay, so this is a layout, a kind of layout which just announced I doesn't have any parent. I don't believe God. I don't know who is the God. There's no God. There is no parent. I'm self-made. Okay. No one is my parent. So this is the kind of word this layout, this top layout will say to the all another. So all to their parent components. He said, I don't believe this kind of parent concept. I'm self-sufficient. I'm self-realized. Right. So let's see how this self-realized component will work. This top layout. Great. So the top layout means that the layout is always at the very top of the nested element stack, okay, and does not keep containing the parent's layout, and even when there are the parent's directory layout. For example, a top layout is specified by the end with an exclamation mark. Okay, so we're using this exclamation mark such as layout exclamation, or you can, in coding terms, you can say a not. Okay, layout not dot tsx. Right. So this not represent there is no one bigger than me. I'm the top. I'm at the top. Right. So this is a kind of layout. So if you just create this, so for example, in our doc section, we goes into our root, and here we create our parent layout. Great. And in the nested document, for example docs section, we just created a layout with an exclamation mark or with a not mark, then we just mentioned .tsx. Great. And within this we just have an API, and then we goes into this, and here we have an index.tsx. Great. So if you talk about this section, it will simply our root layout. Okay. And if you see this, here is a doc layout. Here this doc will render not the top layout. This doc will not render this top layout. You have to remember this. Great. Here just it only renders that layout, that not layout. Okay, we can call this not layout, or we can say this top layout. Great. And this API which is being rendered at this path /example.com/docs/API. What do you think? What does this render? This layout? Does this render all these two, or it just render layout not or top layout, or it just render the parent component, the parent layout? Let's see. In the above example, there are two layouts in the parent directory of source/route/docs/api/index.tsx. By default, docs/api pages will nested into both of these layout. Great. So here index.tsx is nested into both of these layouts. Great. But it only renders which layout? Top layout. Great. Okay. So, however, since source/route/docs/layout not.tsx files names end with not, then this layout becomes the very top layout, and the root layout src/route/layout.tsx layout is not part of the stack. Great. Okay. So whatever being the nested element, it will also follow this not layout, because it just remove their parent and it's just hold the gaddi. In simple terms, it holds the position of their parent and now say, I'm the boss. No one is there. I'm the boss. So this is the not layout. Right. So if at any point of time you have a feeling, okay, you need a not layout or a top layout, you can use this exclamation mark or not sign, and just that everything works fine. Great. So let's move to the overview section. What is this overview section? So this overview now in Qwik.js, we will going into a new section, a totally new section, which is the data overview. And this is not that data overview. This section simply talks about how we can deal with data, how we retrieve the data, how we modify the data, how we will see that how we collect data from endpoints, and how we redirect those data from one pages to another pages, or in simple words, from one component to another component, right? So this is what we are going to learn in this. I think this data fetching section should be for that only. Great. So let's start with, and one by one understand each and every detail whatever being given in this quick tutorial. Great. In this quick docs. Great. So start with data overview. So what exactly is this data overview? What exactly we want to do with data? What exactly we want to do with the data? The question is quite simple. We want to simply either we want to retrieve it or we want to modify it. What exactly we do with data, right? So we either we want to retrieve or display the data and read at various places, okay, or make some filters, like and want to have some filter data, or at other point we just want to modify the data, like whatever the name was saved in the database, I just want to change it, right? I just want to change my phone number, I just want to change my profile picture, I just want to change my account details. Great. So all this modification I just want to do, right? So we just want to do two things. Either we want to retrieve the data, either we want to modify the data. And in modification, all and everything comes. All and everything will cover. For example, you want to say, okay, I don't want to modify the data, I don't want to retrieve, I just want to delete. Oh man, great, you want to delete, but that is also a modification, right? So in simple words, there are only two things which you can do: either retrieve or either modify the data. Great. So to get the data, you must have some source, okay, and that source is your endpoint. To retrieve the data, to have that data, you must have an endpoint. Either if you want to save something or either you want to retrieve something. In both the cases, either you want to modify, you must have a source point where all of your data will lie, right? And that source point is your endpoint, right? Which is responsible for handling all the data, whatever you want to your HTML pages or you want in your application or no matter where. Okay, so that endpoint holds your database, right? In simple words, what is this endpoint? Endpoint is the database, and from the database you will pick your data and modify and save, right? So this feature enables you to handle any request events and have the side effect on the request pipeline just before you render the component and response to the customer context. It will be available to the pages, the layout and the endpoint routes, but not the regular component. Great. Okay, so what basically we had just talked about, we just say this, okay. So basically what we do, we just retrieve our data and according to our customer. So for example, your customer just want to see their profile details. So you collect all the data related to that customer and you will filter out all the required details to be displayed on a particular page or a particular section, right? And by after filtering that data, you will display those data in the search pages or in the endpoint pages, whatever being used by your customer or your user, right? So this is all you do with the data, right? So that is we will do in this section, and we will understand how we can do this, how we can do all this. Great. So there are the two sections: a request. In a life cycle of the data, there are two sections. Either one is the request and one is the response. Okay, so you go to a shopkeeper, you said, okay bro, I want this. Great. And in the response, so this is your request. No matter how much how harsh how harsh the words you may be used, or how soft the words you may use, in both the cases, man, you just made a request. Okay, to that shopkeeper, hey, I just want this biscuit, can you bring this for me, right? Great. So you make a request, the shopkeeper will respond. Either, what could be the response of a shopkeeper? He could say, hey bro, it's a closing time, and I don't want to do work anymore. You please come tomorrow, right? Or it just being a polite, being a good guy, even though he is getting late for this for their home, he just tell you, okay bro, just wait for a minute, I just bring some for you, right? So in both the cases, there is a request and there is a response. Okay, so in the same way, whenever you are communicating with that endpoint, what basically endpoint means? Your database, in simple words. So whenever you communicating with your database, you can access the data. Okay, and how you can access those data? So there are some methods or some functions which you can use to interact with this endpoint or this data. Okay, so what are the method we use? So we use onGet, onPost, and onPut. Okay, so you will see there are three different methods for interacting with the same endpoint. There are three different methods interacting with that same endpoint. Why it is so? So in simple words, if you want to just get some data, for example, you want it's a kind of read only. Okay, so you just buy a book, great, and just you want to read everything whatever in the book, great. So you just call then you will use, okay, by accident I just click something which I should not. Okay, let's go to this onGet. So you just simply buy a book just for the reading purpose, and you don't want to modify that book, right? And you don't want to republish, right? So in such kind of scenario, you just make a onGet request where you just want the get data, and there is no other purpose. You just want the data, great. So in such cases, you use onGet method. OnPost, for example, you want to show something or want to edit something. Okay, so in such cases, you want this onPost. Okay, onPost method. So onPost method, what where you will use this? You will use this onPost method. For example, there are some database, or onGet, even though onGet is used for okay, just for getting data. OnPost, you just created you just wrote a book. Okay, you write a book and you just want to publish, great. So you post that book to the editor and the seller, great, and they will do all the rest, great. So you create, and finally you want to save, you want to give some information. OnGet, we want to get the information. OnPost, we want to give some information, right? So in that case, we just we created a new profile, and I just want to send the data, save to the database. I save to that endpoint, save to the database, right? So in that case, you use a onPost request, onPost method, a function. And in cases where you find, okay, I made a silly mistake in my book, okay, and I really want to make it modify. I want to modify those mistakes, and all of a sudden you remember, okay, I just mentioned the wrong date of birth of mine, or the wrong achievements which was not belongs to me, and that was belongs to someone else. Okay, and by accidentally I put those in my portfolio, right? And you want to just change those data. Okay, so you just make a request, okay, please give me that data, and I want to just modify some of the fields, and I will just give you back, great. So in that cases, you want this onPut request, great. So now you understand all these three things. What is this? OnGet, OnPost, and OnPut, great. So these functions are executed according to the HTTP method in your route, great. So additionally, onRequest function can be used to handle any kind of request method, right? So onRequest function is the function which handle all these three kinds of request, or even the fourth kind of which is on delete, right, where you want to just delete a data, right? So on request is the function which handles your request. So whatever the request you want to make with the made with that endpoint, so endpoint is the seller, okay, will be handled by on request function, right? And rather than to specify one, for example, if both on get and on request is provided for to get a request, on get will call. However, in this scenario, if post request method comes in, then on request handles would be calls since on post was not provided. Okay, so on request is available as a catch all to any request method that do not have a specific method. Okay, so where you should use this on request method. So on request method you can use for all these three, or even the fourth one where you want to delete the data, right? So on request is the method which you can use instead of using that on get and on post and on put, because on post and on put method is not available in Qwik, right? So if you want to make a post request or a put request, you can simply just use on request. If you want to on get request, yeah, you can use it, but even though you can also use on request, right? So for all these three kinds of requests, you just simply use on request method. Okay, so how we can use this on request method? To use this, you just have to import a request handler, a type. Okay, if you are using a TSX, you just have to import this request handler. Okay, and this request handler is provided by our Qwik. Okay, so you just type import type and there's and a parenthesis. So no, it's a curly braces, and here you will write that request handler, and from where we are getting this request handler, we are getting it from builder.io/QuickCity, right? And here we just create a method. Okay, here we just create a kind of component or a kind of function, right? So on get, and this on get will have a type. We just mention a type which is a request handler. So by mentioning here that it's a request handler, we just inform our Qwik application. Okay, so here we want to make a request. Great. So here we want to make a request, an API request, or whatever the kind of request to get the data, to play with that data, right? So here we just inform our Qwik application that okay, this is a kind of request. Okay, it's not a response, it's a request. We just want to make a request. Okay, and then where then here we mention. Okay, so and the type of that request is the product data. So product data is a kind of the TypeScript which we had used. So this is a type of TypeScript. Okay, we just want to mention that the response should be in this format. Great. And here we passes all the parameters whatever being required to make this request. Okay, and in return, if everything goes well, put your DB code here and hard coding the data, simplify, and the return would be this. Like for example, if we call this and everything will fine, and it will return this skull id equals to params.skull id, whatever being passed from here, and that price equals to this, and description also equals to this, and params.skull id. Okay, but remember this is not the real data. Okay, as you can see that. So because of here we are not hitting any API or an endpoint, we just want to show you, okay, after all of these API requests and making a request, we must have some kind of response. Okay, so this could be our response. Okay, and we just modify our response and return something. Okay, return something as a response. Okay, so here we have this request event. The request handler function receives a request event argument which has the following properties. A request event handlers argument have these properties. Okay, so what are these properties? So first one is the request. So the request object. So what this request represent? A request object, a response object, which can be used to set the response of the header and the status, whatever. We could also set the status, we could also set the header, and we could also send the data. So here we have an URL. So this is the URL where we have to include the two sections. First one is the path name and the second one is the host name. So this path name is the base URL and the host name is where we make the request. So the next is the middleware function. Okay, so for example, we want to do something before making the request, or we want to do something between the when we get the response, and so when we get the response from the server and when we returning the data. Okay, so in this during this event I want to do something else. Okay, so for that I just use this next middleware function. So as the name specify, it's a middleware, it's a dalal. Okay, and the next one is that about. So what this about is a kind of about function. Then there are params which we will get from the URL. Okay, and there is cookies which we will get from our here we either can set the cookies or get the cookies. No matter what we want to do, we can do this. Okay, and the final is the platform. So platform data object uses for the Cloudflare, Netlify example. Okay, so platform is if some data is related to that platform, but whichever we are using. Okay, so those data will come into this platform section. Great. Okay, so as you can see this here, we create a cookie. Great. And in this cookie we first create a cookie interface. Great. And here in this interface we mention our get, set, delete and has. Great. So whenever we use that get, it should be a string. It should be, and so there is a variable which is key, and key should be the string, and cookie value could be cookie value or it could be null. Great. Set. So when we want to set the data, anyone can set key value. Okay, and the value, and key we set, they can set the key, they can set the value, and that key should be string, value should be string, and value could be a number or a string, and there is a record. Okay, and there is a record, or that record should be a string or any, no matter what, and there is an option. And what basically this option means? This option means this either this could be either there could be any other information, and no matter if it is present or not, this cookies this interface doesn't have to do anything with that. Great. And there we had defined a new interface, a new variable. There is the delete, and in this delete object we will have the key, and that should be a string, and has, and then a has. If we just use a hash, then there should be a key, and that key should be a string. Great. And that return type would be the boolean, and to delete, when we call the delete function, we have a return type of void, means nothing. Great. So cookie class is used to get and set the cookies in our Qwik city app, and it exposes the following method. So simply if you want this get method and set method, use this delete method and this option method and has method. You can do this like this. So let's see how each and every thing will work. So for example, start with the get. So take a string with a cookie name and return the cookie value, and if present, null, if not. Okay, so what basically it said this. Okay, so there we had created our interface for the cookie value, and here we passes a value string. Okay, and then we said, okay, if it is there, and if it is there, then return that value, then it's a number. If it is a number, then return this, And if it's a JSON, this t equals to unknown dash is it will return, it will take the t and will return. Okay, so if it is an unknown, I really don't know what exactly they want to tell. Okay, so a cookie value is a simple record of the three fields. So there is in cookie value which having three fields. Okay, the first one is the value, and second one is the JSON, and third one is the number. So the value, first one is contains the cookie value of the string. Okay, so this value contains the cookie value, whatever being the value, and it should be a string. So there is a JSON section. So JSON runs that JSON.parse on the value, returns the result. Okay, so what this JSON will do, JSON will basically run a default JSON.parse. Okay, and it will parse all of the JSON value into a into JSON format, right? And here is a number, and this number will return the value which or basically using by default a number function which will return the number value, which will return the value in number format. So the value will the value section will return a string. JSON section will by default return JSON data, and the number will return a number, right? So the second one is the set. So take a key value pair and create a header that will append it to the response, and the value should be a string, number, or a record, and this record should be any kind, either it is a string or of any type, right? So as the third argument, you can optionally provide a cookie option record for setting the additional fields. So as we had mentioned that as a third argument, you can also put any number of data, and there is nothing to do with that. Okay, either you put this or not, no matter, system will not give you any error. Great. So then third party argument, you can optionally provide the cookie options record for the setting the additional fields. For example, here in this interface, we want to set this like cookie option, and here we mention, okay, we have a domain, and this domain user can fill this domain or either don't. Then there is an expiry date, then that format should be a date or a string, and there is it is also you can either give this detail or not. Here the HTTP only, you can also give this detail or not, which should be a boolean, true or false. Then is a max age, and that max age should be a number, or it could be an array of numbers or second, or either it could be a number of second, it could be a second, it could be a minute, it could be a hours, or it could be delay, or it could be days, it could be weeks. So there is no kind of no restriction, either it could be any of these things. Okay, and there is a path which is also optional, which should be a string, and there is an site, same site, which is also an optional, and here you can pass like lex or number. There should be just three kind of string which you can pass in the same site section. Okay, either it could be lex, it could be none, or it could be strict. And the last one is that source, and that source is also optional, and which should be a boolean. That means it could be a true or a false, right? So in such a way you can create the interface for the cookie options, right? And that options means you can put any data, whatever you want, and all of these option data should be must be optional. Okay, so the more information on these attributes, on these values, you will see in the MDN articles on set cookies header, but I think this is quite enough to understand what basically this set cookie will do. Then we will then here we will say about read about delete, then append a header with a provider key to the cookie, and the new header will have the expiry date of expire field, telling to the browser to remove it, And cookie.delete, when we call this cookie.delete, I just want to remove this cookie. I just mentioning the name and it will just remove this cookie. Okay, equivalent to calling this. We also do this like so. We also either if I don't want to do this, if I do this, it will also going to say do the same thing. For example, cookie.set and my cookie, I will call that my cookie, and calling a method delete, and I just want to delete that new date at the 0 position. Okay, optionally you can set the path and or the domain when you're deleting the cookie, or if the cookie was created with the path / domain, you must set these fields for the deletion text to be effect. And they said that if your cookie was created with the path / domain, agar if your cookie is created with path or domain, you must set these fields for the deletion of so you have to set those fields at the time of the deletion. Okay, you can set these like this, you can set like this, right? You can set the path, you can set the domain name, and you will mention, okay, this is the cookie, and you just have to go to search for this domain name and this path and delete everything. Okay. And has, what is this has used for? Has basically is if you just want to see, okay, if it is present or not, if some data is being present in my cookie or not, okay, or if my cookie file is there or not, right? So this, as you see here, we just uses this 2 signs, okay, 2 not sign, 2 exclamation mark. So this 2 exclamation mark, what it will do, first it will convert this value into boolean, then that boolean value will be reversed, so it will create a not of these value, and then a not of the not, then the same. So the if there is a data, okay, so then it will return true with these 2 not signs, and if there is no data, it will return false. Okay, so has is basically used to check if my data or if this cookie is present or not, right? Okay, so next we have to go to that retrieve data section. Okay, so what this retrieve data means, let's just wait a minute, I just have to drink some water, right? So for now I just take a 5-minute break.